Do you feel like you're on a roller coaster in your relationship, feeling up if the person responds to you the way you want, and then crashing if they're not giving you immediate attention? Or are you sometimes on the extreme where you just go into a shell and you withdraw in your relationship? We're going to talk all about attachment styles, how these affect your relationship, and what they have to do with your feminine energy. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Secret Formula of Femininity for women who want to live a more feminine, fun, and fabulous life. I'm Dr. Nicole Mines-Herrold, your host on this weekly journey to unlocking your inner radiance, nurturing fulfilling relationships, and becoming the best version of yourself. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Nicole, your guide on this journey to tapping into your feminine essence. And this is the one, you all. I have been wanting to talk about attachment styles. I've done so much work and I write about it in my book, but I also wanted to connect it to how it impacts your femininity and your feminine energy. And of course, your relationships, right? On this podcast, we talk all about the connection to healthy relationships, fulfilling relationships, and really tapping into your femininity. So, you probably have heard a lot about attachment styles. Just the same way that, it's common to talk about love languages. I think we're getting to the point where we are recognizing how important it is not only to know your own and your partner's love language, but to know your own attachment style and also have a sense of the person you're with and what types of people you tend to attract, right? Is there a pattern that you need to look at and improve upon? Who are you attracting, and really what's going on with you? So it's story time. This is a compilation of coaching clients that I've worked with, and I'm going to give this person the name Janae. Okay. And I'm going to talk about this Janae character. And I'm sure she's going to sound familiar to some of you all right? So Janae was a person that always found herself in relationships where she felt constantly anxious. When things felt like they were going the way she expected, she was on a high. It was like nothing could be wrong with the world. But when things felt like she wasn't getting the response she wanted in the time frame or the way she wanted it, it's like she crashed and she just felt horrible. She would, as a result, overgive. She was always checking in with her partner. She was worried that if she didn't stay close, then he was going to leave. Like she felt like she had to constantly be there. She couldn't leave anything to chance in her mind. She didn't realize that she had an anxious attachment style, and that's what we ended up working on. Um, and it was driving her behavior. It was driving her thoughts, how she felt about herself, how she perceived her partner's really, connection to her. And it was keeping her from really being able to relax in her feminine energy. She recognized that when things were going well in the relationship, she was really in her feminine self. She was in her feminine essence. But when she felt triggered, so to speak, she kind of got outside of that. She was in an anxious space and it put her into a more masculine space. Once she was able and we recognized, identified this pattern for her, we helped to work on shifting it for her. She was able to learn the difference between a secure, an anxious, an avoidant, and a less common type, a disorganized attachment style. She learned that she had to lean into feeling, nurturing herself to feel more secure, and that she could be okay letting go of that constant worry. And that would actually improve her relationship. She wouldn't be preoccupied with abandonment. What is he doing? I need to go through his phones. I need to be looking on his social media, taking up energy that just was draining to her. So, as she learned to embrace being in a more secure place and lean into her natural femininity, her relationship actually changed for the better. So Janae is a combination of women. And this is a pattern that I have seen over and over and over again. And so that's why I really wanted to talk about these attachment styles. There's an amazing book called Attached, the New Science of Love, I think is the subtitle. I recommend it. I recommend the same way you all took these quizzes on your love language and you know if you love, quality time or gifts or words of affirmation. Everybody seems to know this about themselves. But on a deeper level, it is so important to understand your attachment style. And as with most of these patterns, we know that these tendencies we have come from our early experiences, our core memories, our core experiences, our relationships to our main core attachment figures, as we call them in the field of psychology. And so it's basically a style that we have developed based on earlier relationships that affect how we see ourselves in relationships. They affect how we approach love. They affect how connected we allow ourselves to feel, how safe we feel, how secure we feel. And there are four main attachment styles. There's really three that people talk about a lot, but there is one that is less common, but some people have it. Okay. So it's really important. So let's go through them. The secure attachment style, this is where we want to be, right? People who have a secure attachment style feel comfortable with intimacy, they can maintain an emotional balance in relationships. They actually want intimacy, but they can also value separateness and they're more able to experience interdependence where you're connected, but you also have your separate self. They're able to be open and vulnerable and emotionally available. Number one, because they value those things. And number two, because most likely they've had experiences that show them that they can feel safe and secure in relationships. So they don't have to put up a lot of walls and a lot of defense mechanisms. Okay. So secure attachment, it's okay if you don't recognize yourself in this. It doesn't mean you can't get there, right? Or get close to there. The second type, this is the common one that I see with a lot of women, is the anxious attachment style. This is due to a combination of our earlier experiences and also how we're socialized in society. In this style, the person tends to be preoccupied with their partner's actions. It's like everything is about what are they doing? Where is he? Why didn't he call back? Who is he looking at? And the fear underneath that is rejection, but more deeply abandonment. We fear being abandoned and then as a result, we fear becoming overly dependent, but then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where we are overly dependent. Okay? So it's being preoccupied with what the other person is doing, and it's a fear of abandonment that drives it. And then on the other hand is the avoidant style. And you know how we say there's two sides to a coin? They may look different, but they can be driven by the same thing. So with avoidant attachment, this person pulls away from intimacy. They have more of an ambivalent or they aren't sure how they feel about intimacy or closeness. They feel uncomfortable with it. They don't seek it out, but at the same time, they tend to attach to more anxiously attached people, and anxiously attached people tend to attach to more avoidant people, right? So both are struggling with their relationship to being close and to being vulnerable and having intimacy. Another dynamic that we see a lot is called the pursuer distancer dynamic. It's the same as the anxious avoidant. So it's where one person is kind of like chasing and the other person is feeling like you're smothering me. This is too much. I need my space. And what that does is it makes the other anxious person feel nervous that they're being abandoned. And so they start chasing more. And then that makes the distant person feel more smothered and they pull away more. So it's this back and forth, back and forth. And then the fourth style, which is a little less common, this often is a result of childhood, like chronic, pretty severe childhood trauma. Um, and it's a mix of anxious and avoidant styles. That's why they say it's disorganized. It's not one way, it's not consistent. This often leads to confusion and unpredictability in relationships. One minute you're like, okay, I can't live without you. The next minute you're pulling away. It's very confusing to the person you're in a relationship with, but it's also confusing to you because you don't understand why one minute you want this and the next minute it seems like you want something different in your relationship. Okay. So those four styles: secure, anxious, you're preoccupied, and you're like, you can be smothering, you're putting it on, you're laying it on too heavy, as they say. Avoidant, you're pulling away, you're protecting yourself by avoiding emotional connection and intimacy. And then disorganized, where it's like a mix of those two. All right. So knowing your attachment style can help explain a lot. It's the thing where awareness is key. The same way some people feel like an aha moment when they finally realize what their love language is and what their partner's is. And okay, this is why we've been miscommunicating. We haven't really understood our love languages. Well, it's the same with attachment styles. It's like, okay, this is why I feel like when he goes into his shell and pulls away, he's protecting himself. But then I fear rejection and abandon. And to protect myself, I start chasing, I start being preoccupied to make sure everything is okay. And so once you understand that cycle, you can better control it and actually control your own emotions around it. So, what are some of the difficulties that come with attachment styles, especially when it relates to your relationships and your feminine energy? So, with the anxious attachment style, again, you're constantly worried about whether you're loved enough. Does he love me enough? You're constantly in that state of not enough. And this can lead to being overly giving. You're in a mode of proving. Remember, we said that drains your feminine energy. You can be emotionally intense. It's like everything is so serious. You can see on a person's face when they're preoccupied with their own emotional safety because they feel insecure or they feel anxious. And this drains your natural ability to relax and to receive. If you're constantly chasing and trying to prove, you're not in a mode of receiving. And it can be really difficult to rest in your feminine. And this is a key part of your femininity is being in a mode of receiving, of confidence in who you are. So that anxious attachment style has you focused so much outwardly that you are catastrophizing. You hear me say that a lot. You're thinking the worst of things. Okay. The avoidant attachment style, what this does is it comes out in terms of you struggling with being vulnerable. And we all know that vulnerability, being able to connect and be in touch with your emotions, this is an important part of your femininity. And so when you're cut off emotionally like that, it prevents you when things get too close, you want to go for the door. It prevents you from being open not only to receiving but to connecting and to experiencing the joys of connection, of emotional connection. And, you know, what men are drawn to, what people are drawn to with our femininity is that emotional awareness, connection to our emotions. It's really a lifeline, it's a strength because when people see you able to be vulnerable, you able to be open and communicate and not suppress your feelings, it's like you're almost like a role model, not just in your relationship, but just the people around you, because it's like, wow, she must really feel confident and sure of herself to allow herself to be this vulnerable and this open. So when you have that avoidant attachment style, it really does shut you off from those feminine strengths. Now, with the disorganized attachment style, this causes sort of a combination of those problems, right? It can feel chaotic, and what chaos does, I know some of us tend to chase chaos, and that's a defense mechanism. But what happens is chaos is not safe, right? We seek security. Part of that is consistency and knowing what to expect. And when things are chaotic, it feels unsafe. There's often this push-pull that makes it hard for you to even want to express yourself or for people to feel like they can express themselves to you. And we know in a relationship, healthy self-expression is important. So this unpredictability can throw off your ability to embrace calm, to feel centered. Those are key aspects of your femininity. That calmness, that being grounded, knowing that there could be a storm outside, but as long as you are grounded in yourself, then you can be okay, right? But when you have a disorganized style of attachment, you can't find that calm center, and that's going to be a key thing for you to work on. Now, with secure attachment, again, that is the gold standard. We all hope to have aspects of it or to build aspects of a more secure attachment style. They can balance, when you have a secure attachment style, you can balance that emotional openness and interdependence. And it also allows you to be able to be vulnerable and embrace your partner's vulnerability because you feel okay. Sometimes when we are not okay with our own weaknesses, our own areas of like where we're not, perfect, where we have our own dark sides and vulnerabilities, when we're not comfortable with that within ourselves, we reject it in others. All right, let me say that again. When we're not comfortable with our own vulnerability, our own weaknesses, our own places where we need help and where we need to continue to work on ourselves, when we're not comfortable with those things in ourselves, we tend to reject them in other people. That's where you see the dynamic where a woman will feel like a man is weak for opening up to her. And this will be the same woman that may say, I want an emotionally intelligent man. I want a man who can communicate and who, you know, is open to me. But because of her own discomfort with her own vulnerability, when she gets with someone who does have those qualities, she pushes him away. And she doesn't always understand it. She pushes him away. She feels like this is a weakness. I'm not attracted to him. He's a simp. All of these words. He's weak. He's not a man. I need a man's man. And they're not truly understanding the power of healthy masculinity. A healthy masculine man will open up in the presence of a healthy feminine woman. But she has to be willing to receive that. And she has to be okay with that vulnerability within herself. So the secure attachment is a very balanced attachment style. And some of the key aspects of our femininity, they're like intertwined, they're connected to those attachment styles. So vulnerability, again, if you're avoidant or anxious, you may struggle with being vulnerable. You're either like over giving and scared of your own vulnerability, or you shut down because you're scared of your own vulnerability. Okay? Vulnerability is a key part of your feminine energy. Emotional nurturing, your ability to care for and nurture others, that's a beautiful quality of your femininity. And that comes actually from being secure in yourself, knowing how to nurture yourself. This is influenced by past relationships, right? Attachment styles don't just come out of nowhere. Attachment styles, psychologists have been writing about this for decades. From the very moment that we are born to attach, right? The mother releases hormones. Specifically, oxytocin is the love hormone. It connects her immediately to her baby. Even all the studies show that the way a baby looks, it is so cute. It makes us attached to them. The eyes and the head and the cooing and the smell, right? That is an instant attachment. Actually, now the practices in hospitals have changed. If you birth your baby in a hospital, they immediately put that baby so you can have skin to skin, so you all can start to mirror and connect, hormones flowing, the baby starts to nurse, right? So attachment is a key part of us as human beings. This isn't just something that pops up in adulthood. We are wired to attach. But sometimes things happen where we can't attach. We don't have, We don't have a caretaker, a mother. We weren't connected. They weren't available to us. As we grow older, we might see unhealthy relationships, and that gives us a view that it's not safe to attach. Or we were treated in a way when we showed our vulnerability as a child, we were told to shut up. I don't want to hear that. Toughen up, right? There's so many different points in our growth and development in childhood where we could get unhealthy messages about attachment, right? In an ideal world, you attach as soon as you're born to your mother. There's other caretakers around that show love and affection, and that helps your nervous system to grow in a way where or to develop in a way where you feel safe within your body and you have a healthy sense of being able to determine or sense healthy people and healthy situations, right? That's an ideal world. But a lot of us didn't grow up in that, right? We grew up maybe from the beginning where, we didn't get a chance to sometimes there's birth trauma, right? You were separated from your mother, or maybe your mother passed, or so many different ways that we could have our attachment negatively affected from the beginning. And then also, as we, I say, grow up, some of the things that are modeled for us are not healthy. Constant arguments, seeing people either be toxic in their arguments or go and shut down into silent treatment and never express their feelings. Or as a child, you could be told that or given the message that expressing your feelings is dangerous. So, in those cases, your attachment style and how you view connection is going to be skewed. You may have experience where you view opening up, being connected, seeking attachment, seeking emotional closeness, you were told or you experienced that those things were not safe or healthy for you. Okay? So if this is the case, then that right there is a level of self-awareness that hopefully will get you to think like, okay, am I in a pattern where because I'm overly anxious, I end up attracting avoidant? Because we do have that thing where opposites attract, where I attract avoidant people who are emotionally unavailable, which triggers me to how I felt when I was a child. And I feel unsafe, but yet I keep seeking out and attracting this same thing. All right. So that awareness is key. Or am I avoidant? Part of me wants that emotional connection, but I'm afraid of it. And then I pull away from it and I end up pushing away a lot of really good people. Are you the person that is always pushing away the healthy relationship? All right. Or do you have a disorganized style where you are constantly seeking chaos? We always say be his peace or be your own peace, or everyone wants peace in a relationship, but not everyone does, right? They might say they do, but they have been so used to being insecure or growing up in chaos that they actually seek out chaos in relationships. For them, it doesn't feel real if it's not some kind of jealousy and throwing things and arguing and makeup sex, right? The stability feels unsafe to them. So they seek out the chaos and the disorganization. All right. The other key aspect of femininity that's affected by your attachment style is receptivity, being receptive, being open. Femininity thrives on being receptive to love, attention. Yes, we love attention and support. And an avoidant style is resistant to this because it's trying to protect itself. And then finally, self-worth, right? We can't talk about femininity if we're not talking about feeling you are worthy, you have value with or without a relationship, right? The thing that makes a relationship sweet is that you know your value independent of a relationship. So then when you get into one, you are giving your full healthy self. So a secure attachment style leads to strong self-worth because it's like I said from the beginning, your nervous system has developed in a way where it feels safe. It knows how to seek safety. It knows what safety feels like. And then it's replicated in your relationships. You seek safety, you know how to give safety, and you know how to receive safety. As you can imagine, there is a lot of research on attachment styles. Secure attachment styles have the highest success rate. If you have two partners in a relationship with a secure attachment style, they have a healthy balance between being close and being separate. They have that interdependence, right? You can't be strong and independent in a relationship. You want interdependence, okay? This leads to longer lasting and healthier relationships. A lot of the talk about relationships these days is like, well, we don't, just because a relationship is long doesn't mean it's successful, right? Part of a successful relationship is that it's long term. It's the commitment part. But then the other part is, what is the quality of that relationship? And so a secure attachment style, it has that balance between not just how long it lasts, but how healthy it is. All right. Now, on the flip side, anxious or avoidant attachment styles can lead to misunderstandings, mistrust, emotional disconnect. So, what does that look like? It's like you're going through his phone, you're looking on his social media. He's coming to you in a jealous rage. He's mad because you said something a certain way. You misinterpret things. You both misinterpret things. You go out to do get back at each other you get petty with tit for tat. Oh, he talked to that girl, I'm gonna talk to this guy. So it becomes this cycle where each person is preoccupied with the potential harm that the other person could do to them. On the other side, too, which we see with a lot of avoidant, is ambivalence. So mixed feelings about commitment, commitment phobes, right? Everybody, these are people that pick apart. You have women pick apart everything. Well, he had five of the things on my list, but two, were kind of there, and the other two, I don't know. And you know, um, I just don't know. I'm just going to keep looking until I find somebody better, right? Like they're on the extreme of things, and they will say things that sound good, right? I'm prioritizing myself. I'm focusing on myself, but at the same time, what they're doing is pushing away every opportunity for connection and commitment. So they're not able to truly get in there. The only way to really learn how to do relationships is to be in a relationship. And so sometimes we want things to be perfect before we go into it, not understanding that lot of the work, especially communication, it's like on the job training. You start with your basic, but then you have to just practice it and learn how to do it. So, yes, so anxious and avoidant. And again, I told you that your attachment style, understanding it gives you the power to shift it, the power to do the work to find out if you're overly protective, so you're not connecting, or if you're overly giving, people pleasing, that's a pattern. And if you're attracting people that are not healthy for you. So once you get educated on your attachment style, what can you do if you're not in that secure place? Like, how can you heal it? How can you reconnect to your true feminine essence with a healthier attachment style? So there's four key things. One is the self-awareness part, right? Keep understanding yourself. Write down your patterns. Take a attachment style quiz. I'm going to put a link in the show notes. Take a quiz, find out, be curious about it, and look at your patterns and be open to understanding where this came from. Which of your early relationships was not stable? Was there a relationship that was severed? Were you abandoned? That's a key thing. A lot of women have daddy issues, their dad wasn't around, or mommy issues, a very complicated relationship with their mommy, the mother wound, the father wound. These things will affect your attachment style. Okay, so self-awareness. The other thing is get help. So often we just want to do it on our own. Get therapy if necessary, get coaching. In my coaching community, we help women to understand their attachment style so that they can lean into their softer, more feminine side. And they can feel like they're going into a relationship or their current relationship feels safer and more secure because they're in touch with what's going on with them within themselves. The other thing is practice self love and self care. You really need a routine. I was talking to some friends about this, and it's like you need a routine as much and I'm a spontaneous person, you guys. I am, I don't know how much you believe in the zodiac, it's something fun to talk about, but I'm a Sagittarius and they say we are like very flighty. We are like literally we could get on a flight at the last minute. Like we're very spontaneous. That does not mean that you don't need a routine. Your body thrives on balance or what we call homeostasis. You need to have a routine with your sleep, with your eating, with the ways that you pour into yourself. Do you have a mindfulness practice? Do you have a prayer life? Do you nurture your spiritual side? Do you make sure you move your body? These are essentials, right? I was talking to a dietitian once, one that I was working with, and she said there's 4 areas. You need to look at your diet, you need to look at your exercise, you need to look at your sleep, and you need to look at your social support. How much are you in contact with people, right? That's why you got to get out there. You have to just your day to day going out and talking to people that can give you a level of emotional support or social support that's really helpful. Are you eating breakfast or what is your routine around eating? Not just, oh, I forgot to eat, right? What is your sleep pattern? Do you have a sleep hygiene? Are you making sure that once you lay down, it's a serene, peaceful environment. You have, nice scents, use aromatherapy. Your lights are dim. Don't be in the bed scrolling on your phone, like all the things, unless you're just, listening to this podcast, then that's okay. So you want to practice and have a routine of self-care. And that's key, especially if you didn't have a secure attachment. You really have to learn to reparent or re-nurture yourself. Maybe you did not have it for whatever reason. Your daddy left, your mom was complicated, you didn't have a safe environment growing up. Whatever the case, or you grew up in a very cold environment where people couldn't express feeling, you will have to learn to give yourself what you felt you missed and didn't get growing up. That way, you're not going to be overly needy in a relationship where you're constantly like expecting the partner to fulfill every past, present, and future emotional need that you have, right? In the book attached, they have a phrase that says, you're only as secure as your unmet need. So you have to look at the needs that weren't met and work on nurturing that so that you can feel more secure. And then finally, mindful communication. Practice expressing your needs clearly. Start by writing. Journaling is a perfect way. Then start with people that you're safe with, right? This leads to a healthy relationship. It doesn't mean you're going around. Some people feel they have to go and tell it like it is to every single person that they encounter. This is actually not helpful in many cases. You want to practice learning who's safe for you emotionally. So that doesn't mean you go around and just tell everything to everybody, right? But you want to be mindful in your communication where you learn to identify what your needs are and communicate them in the best way to the people that are closest to you, right? And that usually starts in your relationship. Like you might have to start having family meetings, even if it's just like you and your partner. Like, let's have a meeting. Let's check in with how we're feeling, how we're doing, where we're going with things. And I go into all of this, especially ladies, for you all in my book, The Boundaries to Bliss Blueprint. I talk about not only attachment styles and healthy communication styles, but practices for self love and the 4 types of men to avoid. The 4 types of men that are probably in one of these unhealthy attachment styles, and it's not going to meld good with you. Okay. So I talk about these things, also boundaries in relationships, And if you want to go further, I encourage you to look into joining my community. It's the Boundaries to Bliss Society, because at the foundation of a secure attachment is healthy boundaries. You know how I talked about like it's an interdependence. You're connected, but you also have your own self, your own identity. Well, that's what healthy boundaries helps you to facilitate. And then within that, like there is no feminine woman truly resting in her feminine who doesn't have healthy, balanced boundaries, not walls where she's shutting everybody out, but she should not be in a place of over giving out of being anxious or chaotic or so forth. Right. So I encourage you, if you want some group coaching, the Boundaries to Bliss Society is really where you need to be. I work on all of that, and if you want something more individualized, you can reach out to me for one-to-one coaching. And my Instagram is I am Dr. Nicole. You can send me a message. So I love my Q&A. I have a question. One is, this person said, what can I do if I feel anxious when my partner doesn't respond right away? Yes, I know so many can relate to that, right? First, you need to understand that this is a sign of an anxious attachment style. So that should trigger, like, if you're constantly checking your phone, you text it, and you're like, oh my God, did he read the message? I'm not hearing back. You're like checking, you're going crazy, you're thinking about the worst case scenario, right? So instead of reacting immediately, once you recognize, okay, this is because my anxious attachment is being triggered, you want to pause. Don't react right away. Take a moment to ground yourself. Take a deep breath. Think about the positive things in the relationship. Recognize that you're doing what we call like it's a irrational thought that you're having. We call them cognitive distortions. You're having a thought that is not necessarily based on reality or on the true evidence. You're predicting something negative. And you can have a self-care ritual. Deep breath is one. You can, a lot of us are deprived. I would say like just go like this, like tap on yourself, on your arms, take a deep breath. It's just a way to calm your nervous system so your brain isn't firing all over the place with these negative thoughts. And this is going to help you to be more in a place of inner balance. It's going to help you to learn to manage your anxiety in the moment so that you don't, project it or push it out on to your partner. You also want to understand what their attachment style is. Someone with a secure attachment style, even if you have an anxious one, they can kind of see what's happening, they can understand and they won't overreact. But if you're with someone who has an avoidant attachment style, that's going to send them into retreat status. And you want to be aware not to chase, just take time. Even if you made the mistake and you overreacted, just pause and pull back. Don't chase. That's the number one thing, right? So the key is to learn how to not react. You can respond, but not react. Okay. I hope this has been helpful to you. I love that question. And then the key is knowing that the more you get grounded and centered and allow things to flow, because when we're in an anxious and even an avoidant attachment style, we're in a mode of trying to over control. We're not really in flow. We're in a relationship. A healthy relationship is not rigid. It's not just a bunch of rules and expectations, but it's like you give, I take, you give. It's a back and forth and it's a flow. All right. Thanks for joining this episode as we explored attachment styles and how they affect your femininity, your relationships. And remember that understanding your attachment style is the first step to helping you to create more secure, fulfilling relationships and being able to embrace your feminine energy. Your femininity is the key to just feeling safe and secure in yourself. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and share it with someone that you know can benefit. If you know someone who's struggling with these relationship patterns and not understanding their attachment style or what to do, share this with them. All the links to the book and the attachment quiz and the community are in the show notes. Thank you so much for being a part of the Secret Formula of Femininity family, and I will see you in the next episode. I'm Dr. Nicole.